Hello everyone, Theodore Burns here for week 10 of the Formula Sprint Lap walkthrough. This week we are at the Interlagos Moto circuit with the chicane coming up onto the front straightaway. So this week I ran a 1:30.049 in the official practice session earlier today. That's the current world record in practice overall. No draft. I've been fighting to try and get down to a 1:29. Wasn't quite able to do it yet so far tonight, but I think 29 is mid-29s are for sure possible, and possibly even into the 28s with a draft down the straights. So without further ado, let's ride along for a lap around Interlagos. All right, and so there we have it, lap around there. So probably the longest lap we've had so far in the Formula Sprint series. I'd say almost 30 seconds longer than our previous longest lap at around a minute. So hopefully we'll try and buzz through this video pretty quickly here. So, coming up to turn one, I like to try and look right at the end of the wall here, past the 50 board for my brake marker. It's going to be about a car length or two prior to the ending of this wall. That's where I'm hitting the brakes. All the way at the top of 6th gear, I'm going to come all the way down to 2nd gear and try and do this in as straight a line as possible. I'm really not going to turn into the corner until I get all the way down to, right at the bottom of 3rd gear all the way into 2nd. Carry quite a bit of trail brake into the corner. The road really drops out here, so it's really important to get the car completely turned here into the left-hand corner, because this will really set you up for a good run down the straight. So I like to try and take quite a bit of this curb, and so you kind of see there's a bit of a ridge right here in the curb, and so I like to try and stay to the right side of that ridge, and that will play true around the rest of the lap here. Try and keep the car to the right side of those ridges. And then once I get the car turned onto this curbing here, I can start to ease back into the throttle to the point that once I get off the curbing, I can go full throttle. Now for 2nd corner to the right here, it's really dropping out, so I want to make sure I turn in early, and I want to try and take as much of this curb as possible, eat up the entire thing. Right side tires all the way over there, touching the grass, staying full throttle all the way through here. And it's going to be up to 4th gear, so I can try and stay on this curbing here. With the smooth steering, if you're able to nip the right-hander there, you're probably able to get this okay. And I like to try and stay left side tires on the curbing, just ease it around down the straight. So let's play through that section one more time, real speed. Down the end of the long straight. So I like to look for my braking zone here. I use kind of two references. I use this little access road that comes and joins the track and the 50-foot board. So as I'm coming down here, I usually like to try and brake just after the start of this access road here. And I found through some of my later sessions that that's a little bit better. As you can see on this lap, I've lost quite a bit of time in, would be sector 2 right here. Lost about a tenth here because I went in a little bit deeper, braking at the 50 board. and that kind of pushed me a little bit wide, and I didn't have as good of a run out of this corner. So it's carrying quite a bit of trail brake as you turn into the corner all the way down to third gear. And I try and take quite a bit of this curbing here on the left-hand side. I try and get the entire car onto it. Like I said, braking a little bit earlier helps to get the car turned down and get the car entirely onto the curb there. And once you hit that apex, you can start to ease back into the throttle, still keeping quite a bit of steering angle into it, and drive back out of it. And you want to try and stay on this the green and yellow curbing here. If you get over onto the darker stuff, that's when you'll pick up the 1X in the corner here. And again, it's just flat out from here, trying to keep it nice and tight up through the sweeper there. So play through this one time in real speed. Okay, next session here. I'm coming up into this corner in fifth gear, and now you'll notice there's this nice Marshall stand over here on the left-hand side of the track, and so this corresponds to right about the time you're first able to see the apex curbing here on the inside of the track. So once I pass that Marshall stand is when I'm turning into the corner, and I'm going to lift off and give a little bit of brake to help rotate the car and keep it down tight onto this curbing, because the track, we start to go uphill and the car really wants to slide out here, and we want to try and keep it as tight as possible onto this double apex onto these two curbs here. So that little bit of brake really helps to bring the car down into the corner. And I'm going to downshift into fourth gear and kind of coast through the first corner. Now once I've gotten the car, I can feel it kind of rotate right here. That's when I can get back into throttle, ease into it until I feel the front end grip and really start to drive down towards that second apex. See it? So now it drives down, and so now I can ease back up into full throttle as I clip the second apex here, and I'll be able to keep it nice and straight coming out of here. The car's kind of walking itself over, but I'm able to keep the car on the right side of the curbing here, which avoids a 1X if you go a little bit too wide. And I have about just enough time to get the car still full throttle, straightened up, hands straight, and that's what I use about for my braking reference. I don't really have a good reference. There's really nothing over here to really tell for where to brake for the corner. So you can either do it based off sight lines, or I like to get the hands straight, the car's nice and settled, the suspension, and then I can hit the brakes. And for the tight chicane here, I like to come down to usually only second gear. First gear if I start to go a little bit long. And it's, again, carrying quite a bit of trail brake into here, pretty traditional hairpin with a very, I'd say, very different approach. Getting nice and tight on the curb, not going completely on the curb because you'll end up bottoming out if you get up over that second ridge there in the green and yellow curbing. So again, it's taking all that first curb, still in second gear, and I'll start to ease into the throttle after I pass the apex. Now it's really important to unwind the hands extremely quickly here, because the rear end will start to rotate around as we start to go back down the hill, but I also want to be able to turn in and get onto the curbing here on the left-hand side as we kind of come down this kind of carousel here. So you notice I'll just give it that little burst of throttle, but I'll dump out of it pretty early, and usually try and get a little bit of trail brake into there. Okay, if not, just depends on how the trajectory you're coming into here. I want to try and eat up as much of this curb as possible. I want to get the car, again, all the way up, right up to that ridge there, and just let it rotate itself, kind of fall down the hill here, rotating itself on the curb using the tires. And so I'm not giving a whole lot of throttle input into this until I get about halfway down here into this kind of second bit of the turn, and then I can ease into the throttle pretty aggressively as the road gains a lot of camber here to help us drive out of it. And as long as I stay on the curb here, keep the left side tires on this curbing, I can get into the throttle pretty aggressively, and it's really going to help rotate the car around and help carry me out of this corner. And I can get back up full throttle and head up towards the next section without worrying about going off course here or spinning the rear tires too much. So we'll play through that one more time in real speed here. Next corner here, I like to drive in nice and fast to the approach and look for the tree over here on the left-hand side. Like to kind of use this as a braking marker where the road comes in and the tree. So it's you can brake at the tree, but I think it's going a little bit deep. So I like to brake a couple car lengths before it, kind of as the track turns and straightens up with it, is when I like to brake. And again, now for this hairpin, I'm only coming down to second gear again. It's down to second gear, and it's a really late turn in, and the car really turns in well into this corner. So you don't have to worry about, you don't want to turn in too early because you want to try and get a good run out of it, get a nice late apex. So it's carry that bit of trail brake, turn it all the way down, avoid the secondary curb over there on the right hand side, but use as much of the curb as possible to help rotate it around. If you do put the right side tires over that little ridge there, you end up bottoming out the center of the tub and it drifts the entire car wide, and it's really hard to gain traction. So once I've gotten to the apex, start to ease back into the throttle pretty aggressively. You got to be really careful here to unwind the hands very quickly, as the rear end usually likes to break traction a little bit. A good way to tell is if you're coming out about mid track right here, you could usually get back to full throttle before you completely unwind your hands. If you're coming out a little bit wider here, you have to be really careful, really patient getting in the throttle, otherwise you're going to spin those rear tires and possibly spin off over into the guardrails. So next corner, I'll just let it play through. It's pretty self-explanatory, just flat out, keeping it nice and tight on the inside. But we'll play through this one more time in real speed. Okay, so the approach for the last sector. This is extremely important for a good lap time, the last sector, especially with the chicane up there. So coming in the initial approach, it's pretty tricky to find a braking point for this corner. So what I end up looking at are these dark spots of grass on the kind of thatched curbing over here on the side. So you can put the car pretty much entirely on this without gaining that 1x. I'm looking for this big this big patch right here to drive over that before I end up braking. There's kind of two big patches here. I drive over the first one before the second one, and that's when I'm braking for the corner. So I've ended up taking a little bit wider line here in some of my later sessions, but I found it's only coming down to third gear, and getting a nice early turn in is the key to this corner. You can come down to second, but I find you lose quite a bit of time. So it's that third gear and getting the turn in, and you want to use all of this curb here, as much of it as possible, but you don't want to go any more than just the left side tires kissing the grass. If you go any more than that is when you start to get the bottom tub to bottom out, and you'll end up going sliding and going wide here in the corner, and that's an easy way to lose time. So getting the left side tires right up to that grass, using that curb, and once you're at the apex, ease back into throttle. So you can go into full and have no worry of putting the right side tires over onto the curb here as we kind of climb up the hill and the car really tries to slide out to the right. If you do end up putting the right side tires over on the curb, it's really easy to kind of get the center of the tub lifted up, and you end up getting kind of dragged along the outside of the track there, and it's just not a good time. So I'll kind of speed up here for sake of time, go through the chicane. So it's a really difficult approach into the chicane. It's extremely blind as we're cresting up over the hill, but you look for this nice big berm of grass over here on the left side of the track, and that's right about where the chicane starts. So it's extremely bumpy, very weird terrain here. I don't know why the heck this would be part of a track. It's not fun at all. It's very hard to be consistent through here. I've made mistakes in race today, but I found the best way is to take a really shallow line into it and try to avoid the curb on the left side here and first. If at most I put just the two left side tires just kissing over it, but on this particular lap I actually avoid it altogether, and I think this is the ideal line through here. This is the quickest, most consistent way. And it's completely out of the throttle. Maybe carry a little bit of trail brake, but really quick and direct on the hands. But I try and put as little steering input and as few changes in my steering as possible in this corner because it is so bumpy and the car is just jouncing around through here. Try and keep it tight onto this curbing here. Again, I think that's all in the approach and that initial turn in. If you come in nice and shallow and get a nice turn in to the right, it's really easy to keep the right side tires off of the grass, avoid that 1X. And then again, get the left side tires close to the grass on the second curb here, avoiding that 1X, but also it's the dipping the tires a little bit over or taking too much of the curb that's what really upsets the car. And you'll see it gets kicked quite a bit here with the center of the tub, but I was taking a nice straight line across it so it doesn't upset the car too much. It's when you're turning and hitting these curbs is when the car gets upset and you end up spinning out. So it's crossed right over that, and I'm already full throttle after I've hit the right-hand apex there. Full throttle to try and drive out of there. Again, if the rear end was getting kicked around a little bit too much, maybe a little bit of a lift there, but that was the best time I'd done it through there. And up through the rest of the lap, pretty self-explanatory, just keeping it nice and tight on the inside. Nice and tight on the inside of the track to go as fast as possible up the main straight. So let's watch the last sector here one more time in real speed. Okay, and there we have a 1 minute 30.049 lap around Interlagos Moto circuit. Sorry, a little bit longer video this week, but I mean the lap time is twice as long as what we're typically used to racing. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully this helps you guys out this week, gets you a little bit quicker, a little bit closer, hopefully a little bit more consistent as well. Again, still trying to chase that 129, so I'll probably be working on that quite a bit this week, and hopefully I'll see you guys out there on track. Thanks for watching.